Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 in our chats with Emily as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are using the Thomas H. Johnson volume, and we are in poem 619, Glee, the Great Storm is Over. Now, this is another powerful theodicy, and that's how we will be reading this poem. It was published as one of the 14 poems that Higginson gave to the Christian Union on the 25th of September, 1890. And it was actually titled By the Sea. Now, it is interesting, the comments that have been made specifically about this very poem itself. Higginson said to Mrs. Todd in November 25th of 1889, quote, "I can't tell how much I'm enjoying the poems, Emily's poems. There are many new to me which take my breath away and which have form beyond most of those I have seen before. That one descriptive of the shipwreck, for instance, Glee, the great storm is over, my confidence in their availability is greatly increased." By the way, on August the 26th of 1890, Higginson again wrote to Todd and said, quote, "How wonderfully strong are some of these later ones," talking about our poems. "Surely they must find readers." Now, our assumption is that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net. Down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily's our playlist. I'm hopeful that you've worked through our set of introductory comments as well as the preceding 618 poems. We just finished with 618, At Leisure is the Soul. Now, here we have another story poem, another narrative poem. In this poem, tragically, the drowning of 40 souls. But it's clear that the story is intended to be told to children. I want you to pay attention to the tense in this poem. I want you to note the voice. Some have read it as ironic. Now, it is true that Emily and naturalism have been tied with this poem as well. And we go back to our study of Crane's Red Badge of Courage in this regards. I think Emily is doing something quite profound here, and I think Higginson only got it halfway. No doubt, for Higginson, this is a fairly accessible poem in terms of what's being said. But I think there's something quite profound happening in this poem, and I think Emily is stepping towards her iconoclastic, her Promethean voice as she plays this game. Glee, the great storm is over. 4 have recovered the land, 40 gone down together into the boiling sand. Ring for the scant salvation, toll for the bonny souls, neighbor and friend and bridegroom spinning upon the shoals. How they will tell the story when winter shake the door, till the children urge, but the 40, did they come back no more? Then a softness suffused the story, and a silence the teller's eye, and the children no further question, and only the sea reply. Now, I find this poem compelling on a number of counts, and no doubt our study of T.S. Eliot's Dry Salvages will immediately come to mind with a poem like this, or even T.S. Eliot's Wasteland Phoebus the Phoenician, or Fortnight Dead. We've given full lectures on all of those T.S. Eliot poems at learnstrong.net. I think Emily's doing something quite profound here. I think she's asking a demanding question, and that question begins with the ironic use of the word glee, which, by the way, ends up in 13 of her poems. The great storm is over. Now, again, hurrah, the great storm is over. The obvious question is, which storm? Because I think we've got 2 storms going on here. I think we've got the storm that is, in fact, what will lead to the drowning of 40 people and only 4 of them making it. And then I think there will be a second storm, which is the real storm for Emily, and that will be the theodicy question. How can a loving, all-powerful deity allow for this to happen? I think is standing behind much of this poem. Notice she'll say it, 4 have recovered the land, 40 have gone down together into the boiling sand. In other words, they have drowned. Ring, notice we go from glee to ring, for the scant salvation, toll for the bonny souls. By the way, you'll remember bonny, only other uses in poem 3. Neighbor and friend and bridegroom spinning, notice we go from boiling to spinning, upon the shoals. And then a pause. That's what happened. Then Emily forecasts to the future when somebody is going to tell the story about what has transpired. And she says it this way, how they will tell the story. No, it's not I will tell the story, it's they. When winter, shake the door. Notice we go from boiling to spinning to shake the door. Till the children urge. And again, this use of children takes us back to poem 618, Patchwork Children Do. I mentioned in that lecture that 71 of her poems mentions child or children. Till the children urge, but the 40, did they come back no more? Question mark. This is the theodicy question. Okay. Celebration for the 4 who survived. Glee, happy, ring, yay. But what about the toll? And here we must think of John Donne's, of course, Meditation 17. No man is an island. Do not ask for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. We've given full lecture at learnstrong.net. But the 40, did they dash come back no more? Question mark. And then Emily finishes. And it's as if she is imagining in the future, when someone is telling the story, that the children will ask the question that the adults don't want to ask. You're telling us we're supposed to celebrate 4 people saved, but 40 drown? Then a softness. Notice all the S's here. It's brilliant. This poem is brilliant. Then a softness, dash, suffuse the story. Notice, capitalized. We go from the great storm now to the story. And a silence, dash, the teller's eye, dash. In other words, the teller of this story, who wants to celebrate that 4 people survived this terrible storm, this what she calls great storm. But the children aren't interested in the 4 who survived. The children want to know about the 40 who didn't survive. And the teller has nothing to say. With this word silence, I can't help but think, of course, Hamlet's last word in the play, right? The rest is silence. The teller's eyes, and the children, dash, no further question, dash. It's like the weight of that moment starts to settle on the children. And only the sea, dash, reply, dash. The key word here, I think, is only. And notice it's the sea that replies, and it isn't God who replies. Again, taking us to our naturalism and our study of Crane's Red Badge of Courage. At 2A, what is the message of a poem like this? I think her argument is that sometimes it takes a child to point out the obvious cruelty of life, and some would argue the cruelty of God in the theodictic question. At 2B, the ironic or the sarcastic or the satiric voice, I don't think it can be missed here if one reads this closely, especially when one has read all the previous 618 poems that we've been studying together. We'll see this, of course, ironic, this iconoclastic voice again coming. At 3A, well, I mentioned Hamlet. I can't help but think of Emily's contemporary, Walt Whitman. We did every poem of Whitman's deathbed edition of Leaves of Grass. We called that series Talks with Walt. You'll remember that we did this poem in Sea Drifts, Song for All Seas, All Ships. Today, a rude, brief recitative of ships sailing the seas, each with its special flag or ship signal, of unnamed heroes in the ships, of waves spreading and spreading far as the eye can see, of dashing spray and the winds piping and blowing. Out of these a chant for the sailors of all nations, fitful like a surge, of sea captains young or old and the mates, and of all intrepid sailors, of the few very choice tacturn, whom fate can never surprise nor death dismay, picked sparingly without noise by thee, old ocean, chosen by thee, thou sea that pickest and cullest the race in time, and unitest nations, suckled by thee, old husky nurse, embodying thee, indomitable, untamed as thee. Ever the heroes on water and on land by ones or twos appearing, ever the stock preserved and never lost, though rare enough for seed preserved. Flaunt out, O sea, your separate flags of nations. Flaunt out, visible as ever, the various ship signals. But do you reserve especially for yourself and for the soul of man one flag above all the rest, a spiritual woven signal for all the nations, emblem of man elate above death, token of all brave captains and all intrepid sailors and mates, and all that went down doing their duty. Reminiscent of them, twinned from all intrepid captains young or old, a pennant universal, subtly waving all time, or all brave sailors, all ships, all seas. Again, and all that went down, doing their duty. Finally, a 3B, how to own a poem like this. How do you explain or account for the terrible things that happen to the innocent? And why is it often that it takes the innocent to point it out to the experienced?